Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Nutanix Weekly. I'm your host, Andy Whiteside. I've got a good group with me today, and we're gonna get excited about talking about enterprise Nutanix. So I've got with me, of course, Jariah Cox. Jariah is always with me. He is my go-to, whether we're really technical talking or whether it's business. Jariah, how's it going? How was the holidays? I hate it. It's been like a month since we did the last one.
Dude, holidays were fantastic. Thank you. And hope they were great for you as well. Really, really fun time with the family. So got a lot of stuff done. We launched some model rockets for the first time.
Ah, man, my son, Santa Claus, brought my son a model rocket. I haven't had one since I was about his age. I'm really excited to do it. I'm going to be smarter than my parents, though. I'm not going to launch it anywhere near trees.
Oh, there you go.
I'm not going to have my grandfather out there trying to shoot it out of a tree with a .22 rifle. That's my story from that age, but that's good. I'm glad you enjoyed your holiday and back at it here in January. Harvey Green is a sales engineer at XenTegra. Harvey, how's it going?
I'm doing great.
Harvey, how was your holiday, and did you enjoy your back-to-back 3-day weekends?
I did enjoy my back-to-back 3-day weekends. The holidays were good, even though we didn't go anywhere. I struggle to think whether or not that was the reason why I felt like they were so good, but you know.
I'll tell you personally, and I've probably shared this with some of the other podcasts, I struggled with the 2 back-to-back 3-day weekends. I just love to work too much, and 6 days out of 10 or whatever it is that I can't work. It's sad, but I just it drives me nuts. It all gets bottled up and it explodes the following week.
Well, I'll tell you the way that I described my vacation to my wife, that it just means no new business, no new call.
Yeah.
All the old stuff is still there.
Sounds like I need to call your wife and apologize for something.
No, not at all. You're good.
So, guys, we're lucky to have with us Wendy Pfeiffer. Wendy wrote a blog recently. The name of the blog is Third Annual ECI Report, How the Pandemic Raised Its Profile and Paved a Clearer Pathway to Hybrid Cloud. And Wendy, I'm a huge fan of edge computing. I've got an Azure book on my desk, which I highly recommend that even if you're in sales, that you pick up one of these Azure books, at least read the first 2 chapters and get the concepts of edge and cloud and hybrid cloud and on-premises. One of the first things I learned in the book, it's not on-prem, it's on-premises. And for my entire life, I've been saying it wrong. But Wendy, welcome to the podcast. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Thank you. Well, I am the CIO at Nutanix. And let's see, I also serve on a couple of boards. I serve on the board of SATA Systems, and they're Google's #1 reseller. The last couple of years running, and then I serve on the board of Qualys, a publicly traded cybersecurity company. I'm a mom. I'm married to a musician, and I do love data and geeking out and to write. And I will say that I was a big model rocket geek all up through my 20s and into my 30s. Love the model rockets. Lots of lessons learned there, and I'm ready for this discussion. I'm excited to meet you guys and be part of this podcast.
So I have 2 model rocket stories. One story, and then I want to ask you guys a question about model rockets, and then we'll move on. So the first thing is my story. So when I did launch it the last time with my grandparents after Christmas, it was a Christmas present, I put the little engines in my jeans pockets, like 5 of them in my jeans pocket. And after about 2 or 3 days, everybody kept wondering what smelled so bad. It smelled like rotten eggs. Am I the only one that ever did that?
Oh, I thought that story was going to end really differently. Yeah. And how many kids do you have? But anyway.
Yeah. So I remember that to this day. I'll never make that mistake. And I told my son, 11-year-old, right away, do not save the engines. There's no value in it. Just throw them away, and as quickly as you can, throw them away. Don't carry them around for days. That'll create problems. I do have a technical question for you guys. So I haven't done it forever. The box says you need glue, model glue, to put the model together. It specifically says don't use super glue. And I sent my wife and my daughter off to Hobby Lobby to do something the other day, and they came back with basically super glue. If you use super glue to put the model rocket together, what happens? Anything bad?
I believe, here's my theory, but I could be skewed because I'm a mom and everything feels like this to me, but I think it's toxic if it burns.
Oh.
So, you might hurt your kids. Also, doing model rockets with kids completely ruins the sport. You got to do that like for yourself. That's my mom's input for you.
I was going to guess maybe too brittle, but who knows, right? Because it's got some acceleration to deal with there.
So Jiraiya and I both had the same dad type response, right? It's going to break. Wendy's like, no, you're going to harm your kid. That's
No, I hate to be so damn predictable. Oh, well.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's why you need a mom around. You're like, hey, don't do that. He might get hurt. You're like, oh, I won't get hurt. And then 2 seconds later, you're off to the doctor's office with a broken arm. Okay. Well, Wendy, I guess we can jump right into it. I'm sure there's a ton more we would like to know about your background, but I like these podcasts to be about 30 minutes so people can consume them. I do have a SATA Systems. I'd love to talk to you about that at some point. I'd love to understand their story and their Google story. We've yet to crack that egg because of what we do, but I know there's a place in this world for Google endpoints, Google management. Obviously, Nutanix has a Google Cloud, and obviously Nutanix has a story that ties into that from probably day one. And maybe if you want to tell some of that, it'd be great. But let's talk about the article you wrote, the blog you wrote. So can you kind of give us what you cover in the introduction there?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I love this thing. I love data. I love, these surveys where we get into the minds of people as well. I'm just very interested in that. So every year for the last 3 years, Nutanix has worked with a company called Vance and Bourne, and they've done this survey, the results of which are published as our Enterprise Cloud Index. And what we do is, not us, Vance and Bourne, they reach out to more than 3,000, this year it was 3,400 IT decision makers. So these are people VP level and above, people who have budget. It's across every industry, all business sizes, every geography. And we just ask them mostly the same questions year after year about their cloud spend. And what's great for me, a lot of times I'll read either the survey questions and I'll say like, why didn't they ask this other question? So from my perspective, I've had a chance as a CIO to help shape these questions so that these are things that I think are interesting or things that I care about. And then, secondly, as the results come in, of course they're random and anonymous and all of that, but I agree with them. Like I viscerally think, yeah, that's right. I can see why people answered that way. And so it's sort of, gratifying to me as well. But, maybe I'll just talk about, go ahead.
I have a question for you that might help set the tone here. And I'm just totally confused. And it's very common for me to be confused when I talk to vendors like you guys. Explain to me what a CIO is at someone like Nutanix. Are you talking to customers and implementing technologies and managing, the story for Nutanix? Or are you actually running technology within Nutanix, or is it all the above?
It's all of the above. I'm the Barry Sanders of Nutanix. Hopefully that's the right Sanders. He did baseball and football. Yeah. So a lot of CIOs, we call this the modern CIO. A lot of CIOs in technology companies, we do two things. One, we do all the traditional CIO things. We make sure that the infrastructure runs and the applications run. We enable the business and we enable the employees to be productive with technology. But in technology companies, we are also often the first users of the product. And so in my case, I use Nutanix product to run everything that we run in our, $1.5 billion publicly traded company. And because I do, I'm also essentially a reference account. And so I'm active in my community of IT folks, and I'm able to provide information to my peers about what works or what doesn't, or how I run or how I implement. And, I would, just to be clear, I would kind of be doing that anyway, because that's how I show up as an IT leader. But in Nutanix's sake, I'm sort of, half and half. I am pretty public facing, although I'm pretty terrible at sales. So like if I couldn't like ask for money or something like that, I just really can talk about how we run. And I'm pretty high on Nutanix product because it's helping me to be successful as a CIO.
Yeah, I'll share with you my business philosophy, and I think you're going to tie right into this. First of all, it's a no spin zone for sure. But my philosophy is you build a community, and then you build a business to service that community. If you can do that, you don't need the spin stuff as long as you have good products like Nutanix that you believe in, satisfy the needs of that community.
I think you both have something else in common of you both basically, run technology for a company full of technology people, right? So talk about, having no shortage of opinions on, hey, we could do this instead. Like, yes, we thought about that, so.
Right.
As a customer of Wendy's, I see all the internal feedback that every decision gets, and it's an unenviable job that she does a fantastic job at.
So one of our objectives here is to have one single focus collaborative platform. We Podio, Teams, Slack. I could go on like 10 different other ones. Everybody's got the one they like, and we just keep going off in different directions. Wendy, I would love to hear what you guys have done to get everybody onto at least thinking that one is the number one portfolio. And it's got nothing to do with what we're covering here, but any advice there would be great.
Actually, it has everything to do with what we're covering here. So I don't believe that we should get everybody on the same productivity tools. I think that people are very, very different in terms of their approach to and use of technology. And so it's been my challenge for years to figure out how can I create a rich and balanced ecosystem of all of the productivity tools that people like to use and that they use naturally, especially as we have multiple generations. We have Gen Z in our workforce. We have Gen X. We've got millennials and everyone else. And so if part of my mission is helping employees to be productive, then one aspect of helping them to be productive is creating for them an experience that's as rich and full of optionality and performant and simple to use as consumer technology, as their mobile phone, for example. If I'm on my mobile phone and I've got Twitter downloaded on my mobile phone, I don't say like, well, I've downloaded Twitter. That is my social networking standard, and I'm not going to use any other social networking. The fact is that as a human being, I download all the social networking applications I want, and my brain helps me to choose which one to use for which purpose or to interact with different networks. And so I believe our challenge in IT is to create a flexible and performant ecosystem that allows for the use of all of the different productivity tools and interaction tools that employees need to feel productive. And so that gets back to the focus of this survey, which is how do you do that? How do you create an ecosystem that's that flexible, that doesn't break the bank, that isn't so complex that we don't know how to run it? And the way that I do that at Nutanix, and this is the first time I've been able to do this all in, is running what we've a term we've coined called hybrid cloud. I run a hybrid cloud, an operating system capable of running any workload in any mode.
So Wendy, this is great because, okay, so if I think about Nutanix and its origin, I think about, a flexible infrastructure type of play. Obviously, you guys see where this is all going, Microsoft, Citrix, VMware, Okta. Lots of folks are trying to become that landing workspace that allows you to aggregate all those other workspaces. Is that where Nutanix is trying to go as well, or are you just trying to support all those others so that when you get to one of those others, Nutanix is in the mix?
Yeah, so I firmly, now I'm representing me. I'm IT. Just that's it. Just kind of like oozes out of my pores. I can't help it. And so as I describe Nutanix's mission, I describe it through my filters. That's the best I can do. But I believe that IT, these enterprise IT departments all over the world, we are the ones creating the platform, the ecosystem. What we're running is this, unique to each company mix of legacy and modern technologies, a mix of on-premises and public cloud and SaaS and homegrown applications. We've got special needs from our diverse employee and partner populations, and also, we've done a specific job of finding and curating and tuning best of breed and best in class software and technologies from lots of different vendors. And so we run in mixed mode. We've had this notion of IT portfolio management, just like a stock portfolio. You've got, sort of a mix of puts and plays and calls and so on. We do the same thing in our environments. And so what the mode in which we prefer to run, and this is back to the blog and back to the survey, we prefer to run in hybrid mode. And so, Nutanix's theory, the theory of our operating system or our platform, our product, the theory is that, Nutanix is in service of IT. And so Nutanix needs to be aware of and enable this hybrid cloud. We have to be aware of and enable this mixed ecosystem. And like any new entrant into an ecosystem, we can't take an unfair share of resources, whether that be system resources or people to run us, or budget in order to make us effective. We're already going to be ingested into a mixed environment. And, unlike some of the sort of big players who kind of want to own it all, we don't want to own it all. We want to enable it all. That's our core theory. And that's the theory behind running in hybrid cloud.
Well, I think that goes back to one of the things I love the most out of the index was that how many more IT departments were viewed strategically by the company. They're not just, obviously a cost center, obviously not just keeping the lights on. They're part of enabling how do we actually do business right in this era. And I think it absolutely plays into that of business solving collaboratively with the business, right? What's the right tool for this? Not just us telling you here's what's on the menu, pick from this limited set of tools to go solve this business problem.
Yeah, look, because people are going to do it anyway, right?
Right.
The last thing you want to be in the business of doing if you're in IT is trying to control people, especially in ways that hurt their productivity or hurt the productivity of the company. We're supposed to be in the business of enabling people, and of course at the same time taking care of costs, taking care of cybersecurity and so on. So look, I'm not alone in this, right? This survey. Surveyed 3,400 IT folks around the world, and the bottom line is they said, 86% of them said that they have a choice. They could run everything on premises. They could run everything in public cloud. They could run with only one public cloud or multiple public clouds, or they could run in this hybrid mode, which is essentially running some things on premises, some things in public cloud, your choice of public cloud. And what 86% of them said this year, and similar percentages in previous years, is that they prefer to run in hybrid cloud. But the challenge has been essentially the capabilities of the products. And the big challenges are worrying around cybersecurity, concerns around application mobility and how to really do that, and then just having sort of common monitoring and management across all of those modes of running, and skill sets as well. And so, it's almost like, of course, we know that's the ideal mode. It's like, the food you put on your plate, having a balanced meal. Of course, we know that's ideal. But sometimes, you just kind of need to eat a plate of chips. Sometimes we start running, with maybe just one vendor or just one cloud because we start out there and it's easier. But over time, that doesn't scale. That's not healthy for our ecosystem. And so getting to this mixed mode, this hybrid cloud mode, can sometimes be, a significant behavior change, a significant, technology change and skills changes as well. And so at the same time that folks are saying, 86% said hybrid's ideal for me, a much smaller percentage in the 20% range said that they're actually operating in hybrid cloud mode now. But looking to the future, a large percentage are moving to hybrid cloud actively, fueled by the pandemic and the need to support remote workers and shaky supply chains that impact some of the technology that folks were ingesting before, and so if anything, COVID is an accelerant on this sort of digital transformation that companies have been going through. But it's also, like you mentioned, highlighting the role of IT and IT organizations that were prepared and are flexible and are performant are core to helping their companies thrive. And those that were hamstrung in just one mode, are struggling to scale.
So, Wendy, I wrote down a whole bunch of things here, but they're mostly about you and your job and how you do this or that and me trying to learn from you. So I'm going to skip those for now, but I want to have you back on a different time. Maybe we'll talk about that. I'll keep an eye out on your blogs and see if you write something along these lines, and we'll make that the reason. But I did want to come back to what you're talking about here in the second half of the blog. So without a doubt, the pandemic situation has accelerated the adoption of digital workspaces and clouds and edges and layers, but digital workspaces a ton. Great for me. I'll tell you my real quick story. The day all this started going down, I was in Westchester, New York, went down to Manhattan. I was standing there. I was in a meeting with some guys in World Trade area, and the COO walks into the meeting with the CIO that I was having with the CIO, and he says, hey, we got to start getting prepared for how we keep working when all this happens. And I'm looking out the window at a couple holes in the ground. I'm looking out the windows at a train and ferry system that breaks down from time to time. And I'm like, man, this is why are you just now having this conversation? But okay, fine. But without a doubt, that's all accelerated over the past couple months. Can you quantify that in your mind? Doesn't have to be right. But in your mind, did we accelerate that 12 months, 24 months, 3 years, 10 years? How fast did we just fast forward the playbook, the movie?
Wow. I really think that depends. So industry vertical by industry vertical, it really, really differs. I think the biggest accelerant is in our belief. Sounds a little I don't know, squishy even to me here, but I think the biggest accelerant is in what we believe is possible, and particularly what those in the seats of power believe is possible. Let's face it, most people who run mid to large sized enterprises tend to be of a certain age. They tend to be used to certain modes of working and certain modes of business. And at the beginning of this pandemic, they were the ones who were saying, oh, remote work, it's never going to work. We're not going to be as innovative. We're not going to be able to do the things we were doing before. People won't be able to concentrate. You won't be able to trust employees. We've got to get back into offices right away. And then when we talked about hybrid, some employees working in offices and others being home, there was this notion of, well, but that's too complex. How will we be able to manage that? And I think what's happened is, as we've had month after month of experience in working in this mode, our minds have changed. The moment our minds changed, the technology was already ready. The technology was already there. And like you alluded to, we already, there were some areas where we needed to use technology to make far-flung enterprises work better. My company's been global with more than 30% of our employees working remote from a main office since well before the pandemic. What I now know, though, is that the experience of those employees who were working remotely before, it kind of sucked, man. We weren't doing much to help them, and so now we are doing some things to consciously help that remote remote employee experience, which not only, of course, enables the 70% who had to go to work remotely, but also improves the productivity of those who already were working remotely. And I think that's true across the board. Companies are learning, as cost models change, as we travel less, as we, have more successful conversations, on things like Zoom or RingCentral or Google Meet. As we're starting to do that, they're learning that, hey, that kind of worked. We still, closed that deal or had that board meeting or whatever. And so now budgets are shifting and conversations are shifting, and we're not having these theoretical conversations. I can remember 3-4 years ago when you just couldn't have a conversation with your board of directors without the mask. And so, are you moving to public cloud? That was like the thing that they knew to ask. Now they're asking, they want data. And so I can tell you for Nutanix, we granularly measure the data involved in our employees working all the time. And when we pivoted to work 100% remotely, all in a day on March 17th or 16th, we saw about a 10% dip in all of the measures we have for productivity. Today, our employees are about 20% more productive day over day than they were pre-pandemic. And we're not the only ones who are measuring this. These similar measurements we find across industries. And so, look, we have a model now where we're saving in many industries on real estate. We're saving on travel. At the same time, we don't know the long-term answers to things like innovation or collaboration, but we do see folks innovating and collaborating. But most importantly, from the sort of metrics of a company, we're more productive in this mixed mode than we were previously by any measure. And so that's like a sociological experiment that we need to sort of investigate more and play out more and figure out what does that mean for the technologies that we use to enable business going forward. Also, we have consumer technology in the mix. And I don't know that we'll ever get that out of the mix again. People have learned to, I'm speaking to you from my gaming computer, which has, let's face it, like way better everything than my work computer. And I'm able to do that securely and performantly because we enable that.
So I have to tell a quick story that happened to me last night. I think it'll relate very much to what you just talked about on several fronts. My 18-year-old daughter is taking community college classes because she's a senior in high school. And so she's taking a couple high school classes, but going ahead and knocking out college classes as well. And she came to me last night and said, Dad, I need to install Microsoft Office. This is my 18-year-old, which I've tried in the past to get them to install Office. And they all like, why would I want Office? That didn't make any sense. We use Google Apps at school. And so I stopped and I challenged myself to challenge her as to why she wanted to install Office. And so we dug through it a little bit. And the result was her professor said that she had to upload .doc files that had to be created with Microsoft Office. And I said, well, I don't want to, and I'll be careful how I say it here, but I said, how old is the professor? She goes, oh, she's really, really old. And my comment there is exactly what you're talking about a while ago. People running IT within organizations have to challenge themselves to not think of how they would do it, but how modern day workers should do it. And I think that aligns very much with what you were saying a minute ago, is that, Nutanix has to be there to support your users and how they work, the way they want to work. But I do want to come back to a coaching comment here in a minute. But you guys understand why I told that story? Does it align with what you were trying to get across?
It does. So, Andy, let me jump in there too. I think that, part of what we all need to come to the conclusion of is, instead of trying to worry about the method of which the goals are achieved, we need to be able to define our goals better and allow the process to work to get us to the conclusion where those goals are best met. And I think that's a lot of why people are looking at hybrid cloud or hybrid multi-cloud type deployments, because there isn't just one right answer. There isn't just one way to do it. So as Wendy was talking to, if you actually enable IT to make the best decision for the business, that will in turn enable the business to make the best decision to make them profitable and more productive.
But Harvey, I do want to throw this out for the team and get everybody's response. I do struggle with that answer a little bit, because if you enable everything and don't prefer one over everything else, then they kind of do their own thing. I'll give you a quick example. I had a employee a couple years ago that I'm friends with on Facebook. If I post something on Facebook, a picture, they will comment right there at the picture about what they thought or whatever their comment was. However, at work, if they saw me post something in Salesforce or on some other portal, they would actually go out of that portal and then go send me an email about what I posted in the portal. And I just couldn't walk past that one. I know that's how you want to do it, right? That's what you did. But I had to stop and say, no, that's not the way it works in modern day and work. And what I found was interesting is in their personal life, they got it instantly. They didn't think about sending an email to comment on something on Facebook, but in their work world, they still wanted to send an email to comment on something that was already in a portal ready to be commented on. Wendy, do you have those moments where you're like, yeah, I want to enable everything, but at the same time, man, I got to get all the cattle heading in the right direction so we can take them to slaughter, but that's a whole other conversation.
Look, I think those are great challenges to have. First of all, think like a product designer. Why is that employee behaving that way? Why are they leaving that one platform and communicating in another platform? It's clearly not something they would choose to naturally do, because they don't choose to naturally do that in a non-controlled consumer environment. So take a look at that interaction design. Are there things missing in that interaction design? Is there a lack of integration? Is there a lack of ability to go back to that conversation earlier, or to catalog it or search for it or find it? And then it's just a matter of code. It's just a matter of integration or improving interaction design or putting a wrapper around something. I think those are IT challenges. I don't want to change the behavior. I want to enhance the behavior so people are productive. And I want to use technology to do that. And so I see that as our challenge at Nutanix. That's kind of our main sport, is we go deep into collecting data around, sort of how are people doing the work that they're doing, and then how can we just take friction out of that. For example, people hated interacting with us via phone and email and our service desk. And people liked to interact in Slack. So we just built I worked with a third-party vendor and built some chat bots in Slack where people could ask a question or ask for help, and the chat bot was listening, and it would not just log the request, but it would actually execute an automated response to that request. So someone could get a password reset, or they could order equipment, or they could get access to a new application just by conversationally asking in Slack. Instead of trying to get people to learn how to use ServiceNow, or get people to learn how to, stop what they're doing and pick up a phone, we just tried to observe what people were doing and then use technology to build those bridges. And I think that's our mission in IT in this new decade.
Well, that's such a win-win too, because it helps both sides, right? The technician would never say, I'm not getting enough phone calls, right? So they get to spend their time doing better stuff too. And I think that's fantastic. Well, and to your point, Andy, about how do you know, right? Of course, as always, it depends. But I feel like if you have the right culture, users won't write you a requirements doc, but they'll tell you if their needs are getting met or not, maybe directly, maybe indirectly with their behavior, right? And so that goes to Wendy's point about, is there a tool that meets a certain need, and does keeping it in the portfolio add a lot of burden or not, right? And that can be one indicator of enough tooling, too much tooling, not enough tooling in the portfolio.
Yeah. Let's put the theory to talk.
Sorry to interrupt. I should also mention we started a couple of years ago granularly measuring NPS, Net Promoter Score. So we measure the workflows. Every workflow that we work on, we measure something called first time right. It comes from lean programming. We measure, are we delivering this service in the most optimal way, a most efficient way possible? But sometimes you can deliver something really efficiently and people wish you dead for it. And so we also measure how they feel about that with every interaction, both autonomous and manual. And we use that as a guide. We absolutely use that as a guide. So, I know what people think is easy and I know what people think is hard, and they tend to tell us why in great, great detail. I think that's part of this whole process is creating enough capacity for yourself to, as an IT professional, to listen to the input and then try to deliver. Now, by the way, like I'm sounding like some crazy person here. We do this in an extremely measured, cost-efficient way, and there are many, many times where we can't accommodate everything that everybody wants. It's not like some crazy love in nirvana. But having said that, directionally, we are laser focused on user productivity, on people productivity, because that's our product. Like, we're not in a building somewhere. We're not, making sandwiches. Like, it's how the work that people do translates out into our prospects and our customers that are our business. And so we have to notice that. We have to know that if I can do something that gives every, one of our thousands of employees an extra hour a week, that's like bank, so.
Well, this is a trade. On the report, one of the things I loved was it was almost like a triangle of points that it pulled out, that like 3 traits that are found together of companies that, desire more business agility, desire hybrid cloud options, and the third point of the triangle was more flexible work options for their teams. So they kind of like a virtuous, not circle, but virtuous triangle of traits that go together and often coexist, right? And without trying to, we actually focused on one of them quite heavily here.
Yeah. So a couple things. One, just commend you guys for drinking your own champagne is what I'll call it. I can't tell you how many companies I work with or compete against where they're selling desktop virtualization technologies, but you sit in a meeting with them or cloud type technology and they don't actually use them. So number one, yeah, absolutely. What you guys talked about a while ago, being your own subscriber of your own technology is massive. That way you can figure out what works and doesn't work, right? If it's broken for you, it's going to be broken for others. I want to put this to a test real quick. And Jiraiya, I'm sorry if I put you on the spot here, but the team, the IT team at Nutanix, what's the number one adjustment they did that helped you be a more productive remote worker, even though you were probably already a remote worker? Is there anything specific you would call out?
I was. And so for me, it was less of a change. It was more of just like I'm not just home 2 days a week. You're home 5 days a week, just a change in percentages. So yeah, to answer the question indirectly would be more like we were kind of already there, right? Like with connected systems for across the globe, connectivity for employees. And then I think, Wendy, keep me honest, I think our Zoom transition was pretty much kind of coexistent with, we went heavily into Zoom right around the same time that we and
maybe this
all kind of started staying home, right?
Maybe this is a better way. If this works out, I'm going to be extremely happy that it worked out this way. If not, I'm going to have a little egg on my face. But Wendy, was there anything that you guys did for people like Jiraiya, who, sales engineer that works remotely all the time, that he may not even notice, but helped in his productivity?
Well, so we do those things all the time, sure. But let's see. So when my team and I have capacity, then we can make our processes more efficient and create more capacity for ourselves. So what we started doing when I came on board about 4 years ago is we started just measuring the quality and effectiveness of everything that we do, and then we prioritized the things that ranked low on those scales for upgrading with modern technologies. And every time we sort of turn the page on that, we make more capacity in our team. And then with that capacity, we look at the next round of things that need to be improved. And so let me just play this out for you. The first thing we realized is that we were spending a lot of time on KTLO, keep the lights on activities. And so we went through the process of moving all of our foundational technology to Nutanix, whether it's running on premises or in public cloud. So we created that hybrid cloud, hyper-converged cloud, if you will, foundation. And when we did that, we freed up about 30% of the KTLO time that my team was devoting, part one. And part two, we also improved the performance of a number of our key services. The second thing that we did then is we took that time and that performance that we freed up, and we turned that into putting our money where our mouth is in terms of enabling more technologies and more choice to run better. And so, we've got sales team members who love, to use their tools, and those are very different tools than engineering team members. And, I've got 3,000 operating system engineers, developers in my company. So they have a different mode that they need than, say, our salespeople. And then we started, from there, we started working with all of our third-party vendors to certify them to work on our hypervisor. That freed up additional room in my team. And then we started doing software-defined everything, infrastructure as code. And so that freed up my need to have, a CCIE for my Cisco infrastructure and so on. I now run, software-defined network for my core routing and switching. I'm really doing this, hyper-converged cloud, hybrid cloud thing. And so now I have a small team of people who can run this large estate in mixed mode. I'm saving money by being able to bargain with different hardware vendors and cloud vendors for capacity and capability. And then we're measuring how people are interacting, and we're making those improvements. And all of those things are creating data, which we're using to fuel our machine learning technology. And so over the last 18 months, we've gone from performing about 15% of our services autonomously to 58% of all of our service delivery is now autonomous. And so what that's done for Jira is it's simply invisibly created an acceleration. Everything that we deliver, we now deliver about 38% more quickly than we delivered before. And so if sort of anything, if he needs a VM, if he needs a new keyboard, if he needs access to DocuSign, he gets that about 30% more quickly than he did before. And most of the time, almost 60% of the time, it's not a human delivering that. It's something autonomous delivering that. And so 4 years in, my team is 25% smaller than it was when I started, yet the company has grown, doubled and tripled in size during that same time. So we're also cheap. We spend about 1.8% of the company's total operating budget. And that's down about 6.8% from where I started. And so that is helpful in terms of making sure that we can buy the best equipment for our employees. We can, support them with network bandwidth, et cetera. And yeah, it's kind of invisible for sure. But what they tell us in NPS survey feedback is that it's, that they like it, right? That like, yeah, it was fast, it was easy. And then meanwhile, if you talk with one of my people, they have some time. They have higher level expertise. They can be consultative.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Well, guys, I appreciate the time here. I've got about 20 other things I'd like to talk to you about, Wendy, but we'll do it again. Where can the group find you next? What's next on your agenda that you'd want people to know about, whether it's a blog or a speaking engagement? What's next on Wendy's calendar that would be nice to share at this point?
I just did something. I just before this did a seminar for K through 12 educators. I guess I'd just say in short, as I've dug into the technology that our public school system is using to deliver education to our kids, I see there's a need for partnership and there's a need for enablement. And there's a need to kind of leapfrog all the lessons that we've learned in enterprise IT over the last 20 years and just go straight to sort of that cloud-enabled digital transformation-y, consumer tech. And the students who go back to school full-time in the fall will have been acculturated very differently. And so I'm trying to find as many opportunities to be engaged in conversation and support with our K through 12 educators and IT technologists in public schools as possible. And I really encourage this technical audience. If you want to be a hero doing stuff that you like used to be good at in high school, this is your time. These school districts truly need this support. So that's my strong encouragement.
Yeah, Wendy, I'll just hit you with something real quick. During the pandemic, my son and I started a nonprofit called Computers for Community, and we take donated either corporate or personal laptops and PCs, but mostly laptops. We re-image those with a Google Chrome operating system called Neverware. You and I should probably catch up about that. That's one way that we're trying to give back during all this, using those high school skills that you mentioned from way back in the day. It's not that different.
Yeah, and it's so needed. I commend you for that and happy to catch up about that afterwards.
Okay. Well, Jariah, anything else before we adjourn here? Do you want to get out to the audience?
There's some interesting parallels to dive into there about the teaching remotely and managing teams remotely, right? And both are sort of, neither is really a technology problem, and both are more of a experience and skill set problem. Yeah.
I would love to interject this new topic, which I can't do now. We're at the end of all this, but I would be curious, Wendy, over the next 6, 12 months, 18 months, how you guys plan to continue to measure the productivity of the users, because it's really easy to manipulate numbers and make it say what you want it to say. I know as a CEO over here that I'm really concerned that people will get more and more used to taking that 3-hour lunch and going and knocking out their grocery shopping during the workday and then not giving it back to me later at night. I'm really concerned that that's where we're headed here. And that's going to create a reverse boomerang type thing back into the office. I think it's going to be a hybrid thing, but different time, different topic. Let's talk to how you plan on getting your hands around that over the next little bit.
I look forward to that discussion. Look, Gen Z is going to be a significant percentage of the workforce in over the next 10 years. It's the first digitally native generation. And so they can run circles around our manual controls in this regard. Therefore, we've got to be creative. And I think there's some great creative ideas that come from the consumer space. Think about how compelling these online games are. Imagine if your employees were as compelled to deal with business challenges as they are to deal with online game challenges. I don't think it'd be a problem to keep them engaged for many more than just the 8 hours we think we want them to be engaged.
Yeah, that's great. And you mentioned me a gamer a while ago. I would definitely like to keep up with you and how you plan to attack that, because that's not me. I'm a stick and carrot kind of guy, which works for my kids, but doesn't work with everybody else's kids. So I would love to see how you plan to handle that. Harvey Green, anything else before we let you go?
No, I don't have any parting thoughts today, except for we are having, as you alluded to earlier, the workshop on the 29th to go through Nutanix and go through more of the technology behind it. So definitely feel free to join that to anybody who's listening today.
And that's Harvey's structured workshop. Great. He has a plan he follows, but he can also go off script. So you bring your topics and your questions. If he can't answer them, he'll get with folks like Jariah and come back and answer the questions. I really think it's a valuable thing that you're doing there, Harvey. All right, guys. Well, we're out of time. We've used it all up. It's been a great conversation. Wendy, thank you again. And we'll keep an eye out for blogs in the future and have you back on if you're open to it.
I'd love to. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you very much.